let's keep the flow going by taking a look at another Nexi spammer archetype. We have Heroic Challengers used by Gauche from Zexal, and this archetype is the second archetype he started using after ditching Bouncers, which were a worse archetype, also focused on Nexi spamming. So yeah. Then, unlike many instances where a main character, well, not necessarily a main character, uses a better archetype and then exchanges it for a worse one several episodes in, this one's the opposite of the bunch. So yeah, it's good to see someone started paying attention in the writers team. So anyway, let's get started with our first monster, that being Heroic Challenger Ambush Soldier. It's a level 1 monster, and during your standby phase you can tribute, discard, special summon up to 2 Heroic Challenger monsters from your hand and or graveyard, except Heroic Challenger Ambush Soldier, and you can only use this effect of Heroic Challenger Ambush Soldier once per turn. When you do, you can banish this card from your graveyard and make all Heroic Challenger monsters you currently control become 1. And yeah, this is actually a good swarming effect, but you're never ever going to be using the second effect, because this is an archetype dominated by level 4 and rank 4 monsters. So why would you use this effect in the beginning? Well, to be fair, this is an anime card used to summon number 54 Lionheart when Gauche was under the Alita's control. So yeah, it kind of makes sense and it kind of doesn't. So yeah, run a few copies of this, but don't ever use the second effect. Next up we have another level 1 Heroic Challenger Clasp Sword. When this card is special summoned by the effect of a Heroic Challenger monster, you can add 1 Heroic Challenger monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. Again, a very, very good effect, but why the hell is this a level 1 monster? If this was a level 4 monster, then I would have given this card a more praise, because simple consistency, and there are several cards that benefit special summoning main deck monsters, so it would be perfect. But the fact that it's a level 1 monster completely destroys the purpose of this card, so it's a very questionable card to consider running. Alright, now getting to the good stuff, we're going on to the level 4s. We have Heroic Challenger Spartan. And once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target 1 face-up heroic monster you control except this card. This card gains attack equal to that face-up original monster's attack until the end phase. Until the end of the battle phase, sorry. And yeah, this is a bit of a weird effect, if I say so. First of all, I mean, it can be when declaring any attack. It doesn't necessarily have to be on this card specifically. And yeah, I mean, you can use this thing's effect if your opponent has multiple monsters, then you might want to make this card a bit bigger, so the opponent might not be able to get over it so easily, in order to save yourself, in order to prevent this card from prevent further link plays or exceed plays being disrupted in the next turn. So I guess you can use it like that, but if you pair it up with another Spartan, could you actually double both of their attacks and stuff? Well, maybe you could, but usually tend to have one main deck monster, if not any main deck monsters at the end of the turn. At the end of any turn, well, since the Link era has arrived, then all monsters that are probably gonna be left on the field are gonna be used for Link plays. So yeah, I mean, if you have space for it, it wouldn't hurt with 1 or 2 copies. Next up we have Heroic Challenger Double Lance. When this card is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 Heroic Challenger Double Lance from your hand or graveyard in face-up defense position. This card cannot be used as a synchro material monster. This card cannot be used as an Xyz material except for the Xyz summon of a warrior type monster. Okay, so this one is also neat, and I find the effect weird where it cannot be used as a synchro material. I mean, you could use it, but why would you? Heroic challengers don't benefit that much for running any synchro monsters, so this effect is kind of pointless. So yeah. And as for this thing, you're only locked out to warrior type monsters with your Xyz summons, which can be a bit of a hindrance if you want to summon something like number 101, and we all know how good that card it can be. And I would have appreciated if it let you summon any other monster instead of just another copy of itself, which means you have to run additional copies of this. So run by preference, I would say. Next up we have Heroic Challenger Extra Sword. All it does is it lets the Xyz monster that used it as an Xyz material gain 1000 attack. It's a pretty simple effect, and it actually works with an OTK strategy with one of their Xyz monsters, which we'll mention later. So we should definitely stack up on this before you make any other occupancies on your main decks. So yeah, run a copy or two. 3 can be a bit cloggy, but it never hurts in a grand scheme of things. Next up we have Heroic Challenger Assault Halberd. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. When this card inflicts damage to your opponent, you can add 1 heroic card from your deck to your hand. So yeah, it should come to no surprise that this is a 3-off staple, because it has a neat summoning condition, and upon dealing battle damage it searches out any archetypal card in the, well, archetype. And it works in conjunction, it works lovely in conjunction with another monster we'll mention soon. So yeah, definitely make sure you run 3 of these. Next up we have Heroic Challenger Night Watchman. If this card attacks a defense position monster your opponent controls before damage calculation, you can destroy that monster. Along with Drillroid, this is another monster that attacks defense position monsters and instantly destroys them. And the good thing about this thing's effect, unlike majority of defense position attacker effects, this one isn't limited to only face down defense position monsters, so bonus points for that. However, he's used in an actual Heroic Challenger deck, there ain't none, and guess what? Link summoning is a thing, so yeah, good luck summoning decent defense position decks now. Anyway, next up we have another monster of theirs, that being Heroic Challenger Sword Shield. And during either player's turn, if you control a face-up heroic monster, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. For the rest of this turn you take no battle damage, and heroic monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. I would love this more if it protected them from being destroyed by card effects as well, but I guess you can't ask for too much from a card from an Xyz era. Anyway, this is a perfectly serviceable card. 1 or 2 copies should be completely fine. So yeah, it's also a decent 2k wall. Yeah, it's an okay card. Definitely run this one. Next up we have Heroic Challenger 1000 Blades. Once per turn, if this card is in attack position, you can discard 1 heroic card. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of its turn except heroic monsters. Also, special summon 1 heroic monster from your deck. And if you do, change this card to the defense position. When you take damage while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card in attack position. You can only use this effect of Heroic Challenger 1000 Blades once per turn. Yes, this is a long Assault Halberd, another 3-off staple in the archetype, and this is actually a 3-off staple in any warrior-centric build, since it has a unique but fun summoning condition. It can be fulfilled by splashing in Zephyros, the Elite, as a tech option, so it's got synergy on that part as well. And it also helps to summon one of their better Xyz monsters, but we'll get more on that later. So yeah, you should always run 3 of these. Alright, the final main deck monster is Heroic Challenger Warhammer. It's a level 6 monster and it has this effect. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can equip the destroyed monster to this card. You can only equip one monster at a time to this card with this effect, and this card gains attack equal to the that monster's equipped or monster's attack. I mean, if you ever see a tribute monster in a deck focused around, for example, level 4 spamming and rank 4 XC spamming, you generally avoid to run this card, and I mean that card or this card in specific. But if you really crave this effect, just run Truckroid. It's a level 4 and it doesn't even have the limitation of how many monsters can be equipped to this card with this effect. I would have given this more credit if it had the Underground Arachnid effect, where it can disequip the monster equipped to this for protection effects and everything. But as it is now, you generally avoid this at all times. Alright, now moving on to the Rexy's monster, we have Heroic Challenger Excalibur. It requires 2 level 4 warrior monsters, and once per turn you can detach 2 Xyz materials from this card. This card's attack becomes double its original attack until your opponent's next end phase. Now, you probably are guessing that I would say something like that I hate monsters whose Xyz effects can be used only once. However, well, it is true here, and well, you can kind of circumvent it by running Xyz Overdrive Field Spell. The cards can be a massive OTK enabler when someone with an extra sword, since you can make these cards attack. If you use 2 of them to Xyz summon, you make these cards attack 4,000, and with a certain other spell card and its own effect, you can make this card so be a really good amounts of like 10,000 plus damage or even beyond, which can severely OTK the opponents. So yeah, you can always try out an Excalibur Turbo OTK build. So splashing in some cards that gain that allow it to gain additional attack points is always appreciated. So yeah, it's a very nice boss monster, and give it a shot. So let's see what happens. Their next monster is Heroic Champion Gandiva. Also requires 2 level 4 warrior monsters, has 100 more original attack than Excalibur, and once per turn, when a level 4 or lower monster is special summoned to your opponent's side of the field, except during the damage step, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, destroy that special summon monsters. And yeah, this is actually a very good, very neat effect if you're playing against a pendulum deck. And yeah, it's not that useful nowadays, since all the relevant monsters that will be special summon will be link monsters. However, you can use this in a pinch, so yeah, running a copy or 2 wouldn't hurt. Their next monster is Heroic Champion Kusanagi. It requires 3 level 4 warrior monsters, and once per turn, during either player's turn, when a trap card is activated, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Then this card gains 500 attack, the attack boost being permanent. I would love this thing again more if it also involved the activation of spell cards as well. I'm not even going to question why it's limited to only trap cards. Maybe some anime controversy, I don't know. I'm not sure, it's been a while since I saw Zexal, so yeah, the only relevant thing about this is the attack boost, and that's about as far as it goes. Still, I would prefer Excalibur over this any day of the week. But anyway, I know what you all wanted to see. The legendary rank 4 Xyz, number 86, Heroic Champion, Rhongomyniad. Yes, this massive beast requires 2 or more max 5 level 4 warriors again, And during each of your opponent's end phase, detach one Xyz material from this card. This card gains effect based on the number of Xyz materials you attached to it. 1 or more, cannot be destroyed by battle. 2 or more, gains 1500 attack and defense. 3 or more, unaffected by other card effects. 4 or more, your opponent cannot normal or special summon monsters. 5. Once per turn, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Here it is. Probably the best lockdown card ever created in history of ever. And because of it, it recently got banned. Just that good. Satellar Knights overused it. Heroic Challengers were kind of on the sensitive side with them, since their support got a bit finicky at the time about summoning this thing. And yeah, other warrior monsters also had a field day with it. So basically this card can prevent you from playing the goddamn game if you summon it turbo quick with 5 Xyz materials. Well, in its archetype, 1000 Blades, a Hustled Halberd, Extra Sword. Extra Sword is not that necessary, but it can give it an attack boost. Goblinberg, anything that revolves around spamming level 4 monsters, warriors that is, you can easily summon this thing. Satellar Knights, like I already mentioned, had a field date with this thing. So yeah, if it ever comes back, which I presume will never be a thing, you should always max out on it, like period. Always, never let it go. It's just that good. Next up we have their only spell card, Heroic Chance. Target one face-up heroic monster you control. This turn double its attack, but it cannot attack your opponent directly. You can only activate one Heroic Chance per turn. As you can probably guess from the artwork, you use this on Excalibur in order to gain that additional edge, but the bummer here is that the monster cannot attack directly the turn you activate this card. So yeah, if you can somehow make a 0 attack token, or somehow make it able to deal piercing damage, go all out with this thing. If you don't have any other ways to do this, then run this at 1 or 2 max. Goodbye. Next up we have the first trap card, Heroic Advance. When a face-up heroic monster you control is targeted for an attack, target another face-up level 4 or lower heroic monster you control, double its attack during the battle phase, then switch the attack target to it and conduct the damage calculation. But other monsters cannot be destroyed by this battle. Okay, so is this how you were supposed to use Spartan's effect to its full extent? I mean, it's neat, but the bummer here is that monsters cannot be destroyed by that battle, meaning the opponent's monsters as well. I don't know what they were thinking, but yeah, this is a full-on gimmick card if I ever saw one, so I'm gonna say that you run this at 1 max. Next up we have Heroic Gift. If your opponent's life points are 2000 or less, make their life points 8000, and if you do, draw 2 cards. You can only activate 1 Heroic Gift per turn. I'm not sure what they were thinking when making this, but you sure as hell ain't using it to draw 2 cards in Heroics. You actually use the same Reficule Nurse turbo builds in order to inflict 6000 burn damage to the opponent and OTK them. The draw is irrelevant at this point, and as for using this thing in Heroics, you don't boost their life points in any way imaginable, because you want to kill them as fast as possible. This ain't no upstart goblin for sure. If it was like double their life points while they had 1000 or 2000, I would have seen this run at 1, but as it is now, you only use it in the Reficule OTK decks. And their final card is Heroic Retribution Sword. Target 1 face-up heroic monster you control, equip this card to that target. All battle damage attacked from battles involving the equipped monster is also inflicted to the opponent instead. Is also inflicted to your opponent. after damage calculation, destroy any opponent's monster that battles the equipped monster. So this is actually an effect used to run over some monsters that you cannot get over on your own. So yeah, you basically equip this in order to deal the same battle damage to the opponent and then destroy their monster. So it becomes very useful in a pinch, but that the situation literally never happens that often, since you have Excalibur and extra swords, so running out of attack points is almost never an option. So yeah, if you want to, you run at least one. I mean, maximum one. Alright, time for the grades. Their consistency is very admirable with Assault Halberd, Thousand Blades, Goblinberg attacks, helps from the outside. Double Lance if you choose to run multiple copies of it, so consistency is fairly decent, so I'll give him a 2 out of 3 there. Power is out the ass. Excalibur can OTK like crazy, and even though Rhongomyniad is banned, it's sure some legit power output, so I'll give him a 3 out of 3 there. Their comeback ability depends on some outside support along with Soul Charge, which is no longer a thing, so it can be a bit too hard for them to come back from a beatdown, so I'll give them a 1 out of 3 there because there aren't many options there. Protection barely exists. I mean, we have Rhongomyniad's protection, but he's banned, so yeah, 1 out of 3 there. However, I'm gonna give a versatility a generous 2 out of 3 because of simply how Rhongomyniad and how Rhongomyniad is super powerful, and how some of their other monsters are extremely splashable, like Extra Sword and Assault Halberd and Thousand Blades, so I'll give them a 2 out of 3 there. Will they get more support? Not sure actually, because their last support came in 2012, I think, so yeah. It's gonna be very interesting to see if they actually get support or not. But anyway, that was it for Heroic Challengers. Thank you all so much for watching. If you can for more videos, walkthroughs and updates, comment, like and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all, have a good day, and peace.